This podcast can be found on Podbean, Spotify, and YouTube. Hello and welcome to the Paper Prototypes podcast. I'm here with my guest, Wacky, who is the lead developer behind Military Conflict Vietnam. So Wacky, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself and about the game?
All right, so my name's Wacky. That's how I go by in the internet. I have been developing Military Conflict Vietnam for the past 8 years. Yes, it has been that long. I actually turned 32 recently, and I started when I was 24. And I'm from Switzerland. What else would you like me to tell you?
Well, how did you get into development, and then how did you also get into developing this game?
Well, that's actually funny because it's absolutely got nothing to do with what I studied or what I did in school. Since I'm like 13 years old. Well, before that, I've always been into games and especially Vietnam games. But we all love Half-Life 2, and from Half-Life 2, we were able to make the best modifications. And that's basically how I got into gaming because of those modifications, right? So I tried to help here and there in some studios where I could make some maps and things like this. But it was never really professional or anything. It was just modifications. And I got out of school, and there was like some time where I didn't really have anything to do. And I thought, like, hey, I cannot just sit around looking for a job, doing this and that. So why don't I do a game, right? And so that's basically how I got to develop Military Conflict Vietnam. I had some money on the side from the army because in Switzerland we have to do the army. So I had money from there, and then I worked in some hotels. And yeah, afterwards I took a short break, and I thought, come on, I need to do something. And there was no Vietnam War game based on the Source engine. I used to play Viet Cong back in the days. I think people might be familiar with this game, also Battlefield Vietnam. And I really loved the Source engine, and that's how I got into developing this game, because I said, hey, there needs to be a game in the Vietnam War on the Source engine.
So
Yeah.
I completely forgot that Switzerland had mandatory conscription. Yeah. So is
Yeah,
that
it
like
does.
is that like a big influence as to why you're into like military games, or is it just a happy coincidence that you were into them before you got conscripted?
Oh no, I was always into military games. The first game I ever played, I think, was Counter-Strike 1.6, and that was when I was around like 8 years old. I mean, back then it was not even 1.6, right? It was like 1.0 or 1.5. I don't really remember. It was my brother who started with it, and I jumped right into it, and that's how I got involved with Half-Life, and then Half-Life 2, of course, and all the modifications, right? Because Counter-Strike is actually a modification from Half-Life, and yeah, that really got things going, I would say.
And coming from Switzerland, what's your familiarity with the Vietnam War?
Oh, I have to admit, since I'm, I have been having history in school, or even before that, I was just always obsessed with wars, and the Vietnam War was just so interesting because it brings so many things together. It's like you have this transition, right? You go from black and white in the Vietnam War, and sorry, in the Second World War and in the Korea War, to the color. Suddenly, people have cameras, people start to record a lot, and so there's so much stuff coming from the Vietnam War, like videos, and it's all in color, which for us, when you grew up, you saw something in black and white, you thought, oh my God, it's ancient. But the Vietnam War already started to have color, so it was very recent. At least I had this feeling, and as well, you see it with the weapons. They're modern already, right? You have helicopters now, and machine guns, assault rifles. Whereas in the Second World War, everything was still semi-automatic. Mostly, you had a few full automatic guns, but the Vietnam War just has everything. You have all those old weapons mixed with those new weapons. So I really love it. Fascinating, really.
Is the Vietnam War really popular in like Swiss media, or was it just something that you found fascinating during your studies?
No, no, I'm really fascinated with America in general. American history it's very interesting. I mean, there's a Swiss history too, but I'm not too familiar with it. Not like I'm familiar with American history, for example. And yeah, the Vietnam War is just great. I mean, what can I say? It's interesting. And yeah, it probably comes as well from when I was a kid. I started playing this game, Viet Cong or Battlefield Vietnam, and the interest just grew, you know. It probably came from there too. Or all those movies like Platoon, Apocalypse Now. My parents were always very, you know, they didn't care what movies we watched. And when my father liked to watch all these war movies, and so I saw all these war movies when I was a little kid, and it just all grew on me.
You know, it's funny if people have gone back and watched my previous videos, they'll know I'm a real history nerd when it comes to specifically European history. So it's funny to talk to someone from Switzerland saying, "Yeah, I love American history."
Oh, it's great.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, American history is European history to some extent. If
Oh yeah, for sure. With the colonialization, with like the French-American wars, and how like a lot of people don't realize that the American Revolution was partially won because France intervened because of the conflict with like Britain and France against each other. It's a whole thing, but
yeah, they hated Britain, that's for sure.
they might still do.
Yeah, who knows?
So how do most people in your country come to learn about the Vietnam War, or I guess a lot of the people around you? Do you feel they mostly learn it from reading history books, or do you feel it's mostly that they're kind of learning secondary from watching movies or playing video games?
Jesus, you know, I have no idea because I have to be totally honest with you. I did high school here in Switzerland, so I didn't even do the local Swiss program. I went to an international school. I'm from Zurich, actually, in Switzerland, which is a little bit international. And yeah, so I went to an international school, and I don't know, it was on their program. What can I say? Yeah.
So you jumped straight into developing this game because you have a love of American history, particularly the Vietnam War. But what
Mm.
is it about the Source engine that drew you to it?
But it's solid, you know. This engine is really solid. Of course, you have some people sometimes complain about, oh yeah, the hitboxes, this and that, but maybe they're just bad. I don't know. The Source engine, it's really solid. You know, you stand on an edge, on a window seam. You're not gonna fall on either side. You're just gonna rest on that window seam or on a wall. You jump on a wall. You go into other engines, you slide off. It just feels funny, you know. The Source engine, it's solid, and it's been around for a long time, and they fixed many bugs on it, and we fixed many bugs on it. It's just great. What can I say? People love it. I love it.
So you would say there's also like a lot of documentation that makes it easier to develop for?
And not only this, I mean, it's what I worked on all my life. It's what most of my team has worked on all their life, and we are very familiar with it. But also, I only play Source games, you know. I mean, of course, if you go to my Steam library, you will find all kind of games, but the games I played the most are Source games. So it's part of my life. Yeah.
I always think it's crazy with how popular the Source engine is because now we're up to Unreal Engine 5. And there's Godot, Game Maker, Unity, Unreal. There's so many tools out there, and Source has its limitations. It has its age, but people always come back to it. Is there a specific reason why people always come back to it?
Honestly, it's hard to say. I would just say there is a few very solid and good games, great games actually, that run on the Source engine, and everybody knows them. You know, I think it's hard to find someone that is really into gaming that hasn't played a game that runs on the Source engine, be it Team Fortress 2 or now, of course, it's Counter-Strike 2 before it was CS:GO, or even Dota, right? This is on the Source engine. So I think people are familiar with it, and so that's why they like it. They go for it. It's like it feels consistent. You can just jump into military conflict Vietnam like any other Source game, and you know what keys you have to press. It's so you don't have to learn like a new game, if you know what I mean.
I don't really pay attention to a lot of MOBAs. I hadn't even realized that Dota was developed on the Source engine.
The second one, not the first one.
Gotcha. Okay. Are there any big limitations to the Source engine that make it harder to develop your game for it?
Oh yeah, it's old. I don't know how specific I can talk, like development wise, if people would even understand this, but I'm gonna try it anyway. So in most games, of course, nowadays they're made from models. The tanks are models, the weapons are models, the trees are models, the whatever is made out of a model. If you go into newer engines like Unreal Engine, 99% of the game is made out of models. And in the Source engine, it's still a little bit different. You're working with brushes. So when you are making a house, you're actually blocking out this house. And in the end of the day, when you compile a map and what you see in the game, it's still made out of brushes. It's not a model. So you have, of course, our maps now are also made out of models. Our tanks, all this stuff is made out of a model. But it's a whole lot different, And when you compile those maps, the more models you have in the Source engine, the slower it's going to get, because the Source engine is really not made for too many models. So you always have to hide big parts of your map. You have to do a lot of optimizations, whereas newer engines, of course, they need a lot of optimization too, but they can just put models in, right? And so the Source engine is limited in the map size when you want to start doing a lot of detail, because you always have to block areas off, because the models, they're really going to get to your performance. But of course, you can see Gary's mod, which is on the Source engine too. It has huge maps, right? But they also minimize the models. Maybe people are familiar with CSGO Danger Zone. Those maps were huge, but they were not very detailed. And so I would say this is a limitation that we have to work on.
It's something I would never think about. Sorry, it's something I'd never think about because some of your maps are wide open. I'm thinking particularly the one that there's tons of rice fields with a hill in the middle that you're fighting through. I never would have thought about the idea that you would have to hide certain aspects, or a lot of it isn't modeled, but with brushes is what you were talking about?
Yeah, but now look at the rice field, for example. I mean, like you said, 80% of the map is made out of rice field. It's rice that's growing. So there's a lot of empty spaces there. And so whatever you find inside the houses is basically hidden by a render distance. So from a certain distance, you're not going to see this anymore. Also, there's a big hill in the middle. And the only reason that hill is there is to hide a big proportion of the map from the player.
Wait, so that wasn't like an actual battle or like a game design decision? That was an optimization strategy.
Well, it's both, I mean, you have to think about those things when you start, right? Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing! I love that map. I had never would have thought that that was one of the primary reasons for that.
No, it can get complicated. Like there's rules on how to combine certain models on one texture sheet, because that's what the Source engine likes the most, and then you do get more performance. So, for example, if I place the same item 50 times, when you compile the map, it does combine this into one model. And yeah, like I said, other engines already do that by themselves, but in the Source engine, you have to define everything in script. So yeah, it is a bit old, but it's solid.
So when I first saw or learned about military conflict Vietnam, it was because I was browsing Twitter, and there were a couple tweets showcasing your game that were pointing out how it was the combat particularly felt very, very nice for a Source game. Which that's the thing I kept coming back to while I was playing the game. So how is it to you that you managed to make your game feel as well as it does for an FPS?
Oh, Jesus. I mean, we've been in development for 8 years, and I would like to go back to the Source engine is already very solid, and we are based on CS:GO. That's our source branch that we have, that we continue to develop. I wouldn't say it's the same anymore as it was when we first started. I mean, it went through so many iterations, and of course, we have a bit of a different graphics, but we used the system that the source engine brings, maybe Half-Life 2 or CS:GO as a base. And so the weapons already in Counter-Strike, they are very solid also and accurate, and it has a great feel to it. And so we just did a little bit of fine tuning here and there. And over the course of 8 years, I think it's enough time to to fine tune everything, right? It hasn't been great from the start, I would say, but we've reached a point where you could say, hey, this feels great. I mean, that's what other people say, and I'm thankful for that.
I also enjoy the small details of getting in a firefight close up with someone and I watch their helmet pop off as I'm hitting them in the head, or particularly the ragdolls are always really satisfying to pull off. Do you think?
Yeah,
Oh,
sorry. Yeah, because that's also Day of Defeat Source. If you know it, it's this World War II game. You shoot someone in the head, their helmet pops off. I mean, it's taken right from there. It's not even our invention. Same with the Rectals. It's just the source engine, you know?
so just what's that expression? I'm only here because I'm standing on the shoulder of giants, kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, they did it, and we just take what's great, right?
What's been I guess the thing that's taken up the most time? Because if you've built the game off the skeleton that the source engine has provided, what's been going on the scenes to basically cause this to take 8 years worth of development?
I mean, we made everything ourselves. So when you think of the source engine, it's just the skeleton, is the base, but the textures, the sounds, the models, the weapons, it's all done by us. And we are not so many. I mean, you have people coming on and off. Everybody's working as a freelancer, right? So you have some people that freelance every month, 1 month after the other. And for example, the guy that does the animations, we have over 200 weapons. So there was one guy to do those animations. So he would animate each of those guns, right? So that would take him a long time. Same goes for the guy that does the sounds. It's just one guy that did the sounds for all weapons, that did all the sounds on the map. So there's not too many people. There's also one guy that does most of the models inside the map. So whatever you see, one guy did. All the textures is done by one guy. So we have like one guy for everything. Actually, people that make maps, there's a few of them, but the assets they use are made just by one or two people at a time. So yeah, that takes a long time.
So, to you, what makes a great FPS? Something that you want to sit down and play.
Counter-Strike. I love Counter-Strike. It's a great game. I don't know what makes a great FPS. It's hard to say, you know. Back in the days I played Battlefield, I played all kind of games, and I couldn't say what makes a great FPS. Even though I think I made a good one myself, I wouldn't say it's great, but I don't know what makes it. You know, people have to enjoy it. I think that's the biggest part of it. It's the community. If what we made 2 years ago is bad compared to what we have today, and I think it's the feedback from the community. As soon as you have different people play your game and they give you feedback, you can change the things that really matter, right? Yeah, that's what makes a great FPS, I guess, the community behind it.
So you'd say that putting your game in early access has done your game wonders.
Definitely, definitely. Oh, if we would have made if this would have been like 15, 20 years ago when you had hard copies, right? I think it would have failed miserably.
What were the major lessons you learned? Like, what was something you did 2 years ago, looking back, that you went, "Well, that was a fucking trash decision."
Oh, or not we, I made many bad decisions in game development. When we first started, I thought it's gonna be way easier. And it's probably my fault too, because the scope just kept on increasing and increasing. And if I have an advice for everyone, keep your game simple. Yeah, especially if you're a small studio or something like this. Keep adding stuff on top of it, right? But yeah, that's probably one thing.
So for a lot of people, the joy of playing a um, military game based off a real conflict is the history of which they're immersing themselves. So how is it that you conduct research for your game when you want to implement a system or maybe make a weapon or a map?
You mean from in the beginning or right now? If we would add something new now, how we researching
I
it and
guess
everything.
both. You could talk about how like that process has changed.
Okay, well, so we are very lucky. I mean, the game is in the Vietnam War, so what I'm looking at is what weapons were used in the Vietnam War, for example. And of course, you have very standard rifles, so you don't have to think very far. Which weapon did the US Army use the most? Which one did the Vietnamese use the most? So we would take this weapon, basically model it, animate it, and put it in the game. Or does that answer your question? Or
Well, I guess I could expound on that. Well, I guess I have two questions. Well, the first one would be: were there any weapons that, when you were doing research, you went, "Wait, what the fuck? That was in the war"?
oh yeah, I mean, no, basically I went with the standard stuff first, and so that's a no. But then, as soon as you start to engage with the community, there's guys on there. They know everything about this war, and they know the they know the funniest weapons and things that happen. And they show me things and say, "Hey, when are you going to add this?" And I'm like, "What is this?" And then I look it up. I say, "I never knew this even existed." I mean, when I started the game, I thought there's like maybe 40 weapons that have been used, and now we're at 200, and I think there's still a few missing. So yeah, that's crazy.
Because I know, particularly with the North Vietnamese, they were getting weapons. I believe they were doing some manufacturing themselves, but then they were getting stuff from Russian suppliers. I believe they were getting some stuff from Chinese suppliers. So they were just getting like all sorts of stuff thrown their direction, along with like the South Vietnamese as well, whatever the Americans could supply themselves with, which sometimes was very out of date equipment.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they had everything, right? Like I said, World War II, even some stuff from World War One, and stuff from China, from Russia. And then you had the Australians come in with their own stuff, and I believe they still were part of the Commonwealth at this time. I'm not sure though. And so they had a lot of British guns, and so there's plenty of guns, plenty. Yeah. And the war was so long, right? I mean, it started what in 1965, and I mean it ended officially in 1972, but they kept on fighting until 1975. So the USA went out in 1972, but South Vietnam and the North kept on fighting till 1975. And that's a long time for stuff to develop and enter the war, right? So you had new weapons enter the war every year.
I'm also realizing they probably also had tons of surplus because they were fighting against the French for independence for a while. So
Oh
there's
yeah,
all
right,
that
right.
stuff lying around as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, I nearly forgot about this too. Yeah, they have this funny French equipment, right?
So it's just a
Which is great.
cacophony of like all kinds of just random bullshit lying around.
Yeah, and you can even get away with adding one or two weapons that might not be historically accurate. Like, it's funny. There's, for example, this game Viet Cong, yeah, and they have a SVT-40 in that game. And when I started doing this game, I did my research, and my research was also based on Viet Cong because I just loved that game. And I saw they have this weapon, so it must be true. So I added it. We actually have the AVT-40 as a battle rifle and the SVT-40 as a sniper rifle for the Vietnamese. But I mean, if you ask an expert on the Vietnam War, he says those weapons the Soviet Union never sent to North Vietnam, right? But they're already in the game, and we're not going to remove them just because of that.
Oh, who's the weird the thing that always comes to some of these conflicts is that who knows who's to say that like someone's grandfather didn't like bring something over from overseas and that's been passed down and now he wants to join the war so he takes this old gun with him.
Yeah,
I
you
know.
never know.
Yeah, that was my some of my favorite parts about playing Insurgency was you're going again up against like modern and military equipment from the United States, and it's like I brought my MP40, let's go.
Yeah, that game's crazy. It's great. It's so good.
So, how is it that you conduct research when it comes to building your maps, though? Do you look at like pictures of things that actually happened, or do you read about something and then loosely build a map out of the events that you have read?
Well, yeah, actually, all our maps are based on historic locations, and we try to do that as good as we can. I would say the main maps, we just try to look for one thing that is recognizable, right? When you go, for example, in Saigon, we have a pharmacy there in the center that actually was in Saigon. And so you try to build the map around those things. So you always need something in your map that people can recognize. And the names are always right for the map. So they are based on historic locations. And also a few of the skyboxes that we are doing are actual scans from satellites. Yeah.
Oh wow,
So
okay.
so one guy has like the scans from Vietnam, and the skyboxes that you see around maps, like Khe Sanh, the depot, for example, that skybox that's around it is actually it's from the same location. So that's what people back then would have seen too. And quite a few maps are using these techniques. And there's of course maps as well that are reusing certain skyboxes. But now we have a map that's coming up. It's called the Port of Ha Long. And also that map is also using a scan. So it's actually fun. It's exactly what you're seeing from that location. So yeah, I would say we do research on the maps a little bit. I mean, concerning history, they're not just made up. There was one though, which I mean, it's not made up. So the map itself, the Third Field Hospital actually existed, and we tried to make it as close to the Third Field Hospital as we could, but it was never a battlefield. So the Vietnamese didn't attack that hospital. So when you're fighting in the hospital hallways and everything, that didn't happen, of course. Yeah.
And how do you end up creating variety when it comes to the maps?
Oh, there's plenty of variety in Vietnam. I mean, you have so many different landscapes, and right, for example, you have an air base, then again you have a city, and they have 20 different cities, and each of those cities look so different because Saigon back then was very modernized already, and then you have cities like Quang Tri, which don't have a lot of high-rise buildings. And I mean, you can play with the weather. Sometimes it rains, and some places take part in the jungle, and you can go back to beaches. So Vietnam gives you a lot to play with, and so that's I have to say that's pretty easy actually to make different maps. Or like one map as well is on the ship, the USNS Card, which also existed. The Viet Cong actually blew it up, which is quite fascinating. They managed to blow up a whole ship. But yeah, there's plenty of stuff to do. So you look for something, you will find it. So you can even just make up an idea. Like you can say, oh, I want to have a map in trenches, and then you just Google a little bit, which is the most famous trench battlefield in the Vietnam War, and it will spit out something, and you just call it like that, and you make the trenches, and that will be fine.
The one thing I loved about the map variety is that when I play some FPS games, I usually lock into a class and a specific weapon, and I don't really evolve from that because I get comfortable with how I'm learning. Um, but I'll play one map that's so close quarters, like the Third Field Hospital, and go, well, at this point I have to switch to a the shotgun. Or I'll play like a really open field where it's like, okay, this one, now it would make sense to pick like the Lien field or something that close quarters enough that I'd pick the grease gun. So the map variety, whether it's very open or dense, or whether there's lots of long streets or whether there's short alleys, is influencing depending what classes I want to play, because it's dependent on how the map layout is.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, of course, when you play rice fields, you want to be a sniper, most probably, right? Because it's the easiest to kill people. It's actually one of the maps people don't like so much because of that reason, because people are going to play sniper class and they're just going to snipe you. And, I just say this happened all by chance too. So there's a few small maps and there is bigger maps, and all this variety also just came from all the different map developers that we have. So if there is one thing in our game when it comes to development that has the most people participate in, it's the maps. And there was also a contest, and from this contest we got plenty of maps. So you had the winners, and of course we paid off all the winners to use their maps, but even the fourth, the fifth, the sixth place, we still bought those maps, because the initial idea, I mean, all those maps came from experienced mappers. It just might have been they didn't get first place because the judges voted them not to be in the first place, but that doesn't mean that their map was bad. So we have plenty of maps and ideas. We actually don't know what to do. Right now, at the moment, we're working on 5 different maps that are to come out. So it's
Oh Jesus!
and some of them are still from that contest that happened back in 2022, is it? Oh no, 2023. Yeah. So that's, yeah, because we're such a small team, we really have to keep going.
One thing that also really impressed me, I'll have to say, is the AI. I really enjoy playing Red Orchestra 2, but the problem is the AI is brain dead, and it'll get stuck against walls or they'll all clump up in one position. The AI here is not great in terms of it's not being better than a player, but it can zero in on you. They will flank you. They will be able to shoot you from across the map if they see you and you get in a firefight and engage with them. Or if I'm hiding underneath a car, they'll spot me enough to flush me out, where sometimes other players, I'm being a little cheeky and they're not noticing me. So how is it that you've managed to strike a balance between making good AI that can fill in for players, but not be something broken to where they'll round a corner and just dome you in the head?
Again, just very lucky in our choice of engine. I wouldn't know what to do if I would start the game on Unity or the Unreal Engine when it comes to AI. But I think the AI in Insurgency was pretty good too, and the reason for that is because we just you have the Counter-Strike Source or Counter-Strike Global Offensive bots, and that AI is actually not too bad already. Those bots, they're able to perform a lot of tasks. They plant bombs, they defuse bombs, they follow you. So we had a pretty good base for that, and then we just happened to have a great coder, and he did so much. I mean, without me even telling him to do anything, or he just understood the different classes, and he made sure that the bots are able to use their classes and to utilize the equipment that they get with those classes. And so it just came along for them being great, but they were not always like this too. There was a few things in the beginning where they might have been too accurate. They didn't have recoil too much, but I think there's still a lot of potential to work on the bots, and we actually want to, once we finished everything a little bit, we want to shift our focus back onto the AI. With I don't know, are you familiar with Condition Zero?
No, I haven't heard of it.
Okay, that's so Counter-Strike Condition Zero. It's very funny because it allowed you to customize your AI. So you could basically choose who are you bringing with you into the game. So let's say you have a character. Let's call him Johnny. Yeah. So Johnny is an AI, and you can you pick Johnny as the AI to come with you. But not only this, you can only also customize him. So you decide what uniform Johnny's going to wear. You decide what class Johnny's going to be, what weapon he's going to play, and how he is going to play. Is he going to follow you? Is he going to be aggressive? Is he, so we really want to expand on the AI because, as you see, people are playing the game online. It's great multiplayer, it's a lot of fun and everything, but we also need to pay more attention to the single player aspect because sometimes you maybe want to play by yourself. And in we are adding a zombie mode right now with a huge variety of weapons that are only available in zombie mode. Why? Because they're too powerful or might not be great for a multiplayer player versus player experience. But in future, they will all be available in the single player too. And so for some Vietnam fans or people that just want to customize their friendly AI or even the enemy AI, you will be able to do that in the future. So you can really make your own AI, and that will be great fun.
So I know you were talking about the zombies mode. Um,
Mm.
what other modes are you guys working on, or is that just the one you're focusing on right now?
Well, we are focusing on that right now. I wish we would focus on it a bit more, but we always get distracted by other things. Yeah, it's horrible. We also want to. I love Insurgency, and they have great game modes like Push. Maybe you're familiar with Push, where you have a certain amount of reinforcements and you need to push against certain positions from the enemy. So there's A, B, and C. And let's say we are the Americans and we are attacking the Viet Cong, and they are first at point A. And as soon as we overrun their point A, they fall back to point B. And we need to overrun their point B and so on until it's C, which will be their last point. And once we take that point, they are done for. And so as an attacker, you have a limited amount of respawn waves. So let's say there's like 3 respawn waves. And if the enemy, the defender, successfully holds you back until you have no more respawn waves, then you basically lost the game. So the attacker needs to take all these points one after the other. So you first take A, then B, then C, and if you do that, you win. Or the defender needs to just hold those points long enough for you to completely die off because you have no more reinforcements. And that's basically what you call push this game mode. I think it exists in Battlefield 2 and also in Insurgency. So yeah, we're gonna implement that for sure.
I think the most popular game mode I've played the most of so far has been Team Deathmatch. Do you think there's a reason why that's been like the most popular game mode for both this game and just a lot of games in general?
Really, is it a lot of games in general? I was actually a bit sad people always play Team Deathmatch because I also like Conquest and Capture the Flag, which is one of my favorite game modes, but no one wants to play Capture the Flag, which makes me really sad. But yeah, people seem to play a lot of Team Deathmatch, and we're also working on another game mode, which is first comes for single player, and afterwards it might come for multiplayer, which is a player versus enemy co-op game mode. So I'm just going to talk about it from a single player perspective. So you spawn on a specific location. That location is given in one of our maps. And throughout the whole maps, there are AI players. And those AI players might have different behaviors, which is by random. But of course, if you create a single player game, you can also have some mutators where you can adjust things as you'd like to play. Either way, you're spawning in a map, you're alone, and the whole map is full of enemies. Let's say maybe there's 24 of them, but each of them has a different behavior. Some of them might be aggressive and already seek you out from the start, and others are basically camping and waiting in corners for you, and there might be some that are just defending and waiting for you to actually come around the corner, but there might be also others that as soon as they hear you, they might start look for you. And the point of this game mode is you have to clear the whole map of enemies. And that's how, once you do that, you finish, you win. But not only that you win, you will get a rating. So there will be stars or whatever we're going to do, depending on how fast did you clear the map, what weapon did you use, how many headshots did you make. So yeah, that's going to be great fun. So that game mode will award you in like how well did you do in clearing, like search and destroy. You need to search all the enemies and kill all of them. So that's going to be fun.
Okay, yeah. I know when it comes to an FPS, that what makes it fun is, we've talked about the gameplay, we've talked about the maps, now we've talked about game modes.
Mm.
What about the classes? How did you decide what classes you were going to make? Was that inspired from other games? Did it come intuitively, or were they based on historical, I guess, loadouts?
I stole that. I was inspired from Viet Cong, the radio man. I stole that straight from Viet Cong. They had a radio man there. I needed to have a radio man. That was for sure. And then, I mean, you look at other games. There's always an assault class, and there's always a medic. There's always a gunner, right? There's always a sniper, and there's always mostly an engineer, which is funny in newer games actually try to combine those classes into one. So I think if you look at Battlefield, since Battlefield 3, I'm not so familiar with Call of Duty. I know that they combined the assault class and the medic in one, and the support class, which is the gunner, and then you have the engineer. Well, anyways, they I think they only have 4 classes, but we also try to be a very classic game. So that's why we also have this many classes, and we split it in so many. Yeah, I would say the idea mostly comes from other games and what was there already on the market.
So, your game very proudly wears on its sleeve its inspirations from a lot of games that have kind of evolved past what they are. Um, Call of Duty has become kind of unrecognizable for a lot of people that think the heyday of its era was the 2000s. Battlefield 2042, I believe, kind of dropped classes entirely and went for like you almost like a hero shooter where there are multiple heroes you pick and you pick the loadouts from there. Um, do you find that, going back to source and sticking to the inspiration from these games has allowed people to be drawn from these communities that no longer feel like the game they wanted to play is still the one that they wanted?
I have to be honest with you, I have absolutely no idea how this came to be. Or I think it just comes down to what people really like. I think modern games did some smart choices with like how Battlefield does it or Call of Duty does it. It all comes down to preference, I think. Yeah.
You also have a lot of customization for the classes based on historical uniforms. Particularly like if you play as the Americans, you can switch as both South Vietnamese or you can get equipment from the Australians, that kind of stuff. And I really
Mm.
enjoy the ragtag outfits that you could put together if you play as the North Vietnamese. But you can also get ribbons and achievements in the rankings and the post game awards and all that kind of stuff. Do you think having all that kind of stuff contributes to the longevity of the game and that's why you put it in? Or was it just kind of other games have it, I want to add it?
Well, to be completely honest with you, at the moment this stuff is completely useless. It does nothing. It's actually sad because we I mean, we're still in early access and we didn't reach the point yet where you can make use of all of this. So at the moment, you just get your ribbons, you get your rank, and yes, that is there because other games do it. But there's no purpose to it yet, but the purpose, it will all come. Soon we will host our own server where all the points and everything will be stored. Right now, most of it is stored locally, and as you see, you can just play the game from the start with everything. So you don't even need to do anything to get certain stuff, right? Especially for the cosmetics, everything is there already and you can hop right in, which is great. Some people actually enjoy that they can do that from the start. But in future we want to change that a little bit. We want people to have this feeling of reward, like a reward system where you reward the player for actually playing this game. And it is great somehow when you can stand out from other players. I mean, what fun is it to you when you have a certain uniform with a certain camouflage when everybody else has it? So we are trying to implement a system where when you play, but don't worry, there won't be any money involved or stuff like this. It's still you buy the game and that's it. But you just have to play the game for a certain amount of time to get certain stuff. And this will be also weapon skins, but when we do skins for weapons, we're not just doing random stuff. We're actually going to do things that were in the Vietnam War. And a good example would be, I don't know if you're familiar with the movie Apocalypse Now, but there is a grenade launcher there, the M79, and it has like a tiger stripe. And so we're going to do things that relate to movies or that people are familiar with, right? Not just random stuff. And also a lot new camos are coming, so, and customization, there will be a lot more. And so probably for the newer stuff, people need to be playing the game a bit to unlock those, yeah.
So you're telling me you're not gonna have the $10 battle pass where I can get the golden AK and play as Cheech and Chong?
No, absolutely not. It's gonna be 100.
I hate that stuff. I stopped playing. What's the game? Rainbow Six Siege. I stopped playing when they introduced the Rick and Morty, like the skins
What?
for
That's
that.
that's an actual thing, yeah.
Yeah, so you wear like you could play, you could be Pickle Rick, and I'm like, I'm done. I'm tapped out. If I get fucking domed by a dude in a Pickle Rick skin while I'm trying to stop terrorists, it's over. I'm gonna crash out. So I actually,
Jesus.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's death of the art style material right there. That just like drove me. I just couldn't take it anymore. I had a mental breakdown when I saw that released. It was bad.
I just don't understand. Yeah, but it's okay, For me, I think it's okay. People get their skins and their models change and stuff like this. I just never understood why the studios that are behind all of that want to cash in on all of this. Fine, I mean, you get a crate in most games. Those crates drop after a certain amount of time that you play the game. But why do you need to pay money to open the crate? Because the stuff inside can still have value, and if it's rare, people will still trade it for money and stuff, and they will create their own market. But at at the moment, with most games, stuff is just being added so people can cash in on it, like the studios. It's okay, but to some extent it can be annoying as well, I think.
So I wouldn't call it progression, but it is something you unlock. You do have a lot of achievements in the game. What was your favorite achievement to implement so far?
My favorite achievement, Jesus, I have no idea. I should have thought about. Oh well, there's Operation Arclight, where it's like this B-52 bombing, and I really like that achievement where you have to kill. Is it like 5 people with one single airstrike? I mean, that's pretty intense, right? Yeah,
So
I like
mine
that achievement.
Mine was, so in real life, I know if you fire the grenade launcher to prevent, or some grenade launchers, to prevent the idea of you accidentally pointing at the ground and blowing yourself up, the grenade has to spin a certain amount of times in the air before it's primed to detonate. Um, did not
Right,
know that
right.
that you implemented that in the game. So I'm like, I'm at low health. There's a guy around the corner. I'm just gonna suicide us both. Round the corner, and I just dome him in the head with the canister. It doesn't explode, and I get a kill, and then I got the achievement for it.
Nice, nice.
That was so
Yeah,
fucking funny. I'm just standing there with the grenade, like, oh, okay, he didn't explode or anything.
the reason it doesn't explode is actually not because we try to be accurate like as it should be in real life. It was just by chance, because it was more of a balance thing, because that can be quite annoying, right? If people run around with RPGs blow everybody to bits. Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were just like someone was doing the research on the grenade launcher and was that that's how we're gonna do it. We're
It's both, I guess. But yeah, I think the research came later.
Oh, that's amazing. Just like the map with the hill in the middle.
Yeah, it just happens.
I guess for my final question, I'm just gonna ask, what's been your favorite moment from the community that you've seen? Was there like a reaction from a streamer that got you, or did someone upload a clip of a kill that made you go, "What the fuck"?
There, there is a very, very early small video or GIF that is circulating on the community hub, and I keep on seeing it because I think it's one of my friends who did it, and he gathered up, I don't know, like 10 bots on the USMC camp on the beach, and he just shoots the center with an RPG, and they all blow up into bits, and that really made me happy because because it's so stupid, but it's so funny, and yeah, yeah.
So, I think that about wraps up everything. So Wacky, is there anything you want to shout out? Any like personal links or social media links that you want to shout out? Or I had one gentleman shout out a local pizza place. Anything that you want to, let the world know about?
No, no, actually not at all. But like you're going to stream this somewhere, or how are you going to distribute this?
Oh, it's going to be on where my lovely followers can follow me. It'll be on Spotify and Podbean, but also I upload on YouTube, so that's where people will be able to follow me.
Okay, but like, do you also do giveaways or something like this? Because I can give you a couple of keys. I'm not going to give you some links and stuff. That's boring. But I can give you keys to the game.
Sure, we will. We'll try to organize. I'll try to do a giveaway on. I use both Blue Sky and Twitter, but I would like to move away from Twitter, so I think I'll do it on Blue Sky.
Okay, sure.
Okay, there you go. So we're probably gonna have a little impromptu giveaway. There you go, folks. Keep an eye out for that.
Yeah. So
So
thank you so much for interviewing me.
yeah, no problem. Final thing I guess would be for the people listening. My link tree will be down below, where you could find the links to everything that we've talked about. Primarily my Blue Sky, my Twitter, and where you could watch the show, as well as a Ko-fi, where if you would like to donate, it'd really help keep the show alive. And then I think that about covers everything. So until next time, bye.